and I ended up going to a party one night, and we were really close. Like, we were actually, a good sibling relationship. Other than that weird shit, we were actually pretty close. And we ended up going to this party, and some guy I knew, I was 15, 14 or 15, maybe 16, but no later than 16 for sure. But we were at a party, and this guy had cocaine, and he was like, gave us some, and I'm like, I didn't give a fuck about myself. I had been doing ecstasy already with my friends. So I was like, this is my drug of choice. So he gave me a line of cocaine. That night was the first time I had ever been able to talk about my abuse in my life. So my brother and I sat there, and we cried to each other, and like hugged, and like it got me, it just got me. And it hit me hard that night, and I'll never forget it. It was the first time I was able to open up and actually talk about what happened to me.
Welcome to the show, Tiffany.
Hey.
So you have a podcast, you have a platform, you have social medias, you are out there just doing it. I will tell you right now, I first saw you on TikTok. You posted a video. You post a lot of videos, but this one in particular was about you being pregnant and you being unsure of the sex, and your stepfather asking you if it was going to be a boy or a girl, and was hoping it was going to be a girl.
Yeah.
And that really caught my attention because obviously I went to your page and I saw other videos, and I'm like, wow, she has a story to tell.
Yeah, so that is a whole story in itself. So obviously I was sexually abused by my stepfather from ages 3 to 15. And so when I posted that video was about the fact that, yeah, he wanted me to have a girl. So I'll never forget, I was driving to the to go to the appointment to go find out what I was having. I was on my way there, and I was with my mom, and my mom enabled my abuse, so she kind of already knew that that it had happened. But I'm on my way there, and my stepdad called me, and he's like, "Oh, I really hope you're having a girl. I hope it's a girl. I know it's going to be a girl." And I'm almost shaking saying it, because I was like, it just hit me at that moment. He wants to hurt my kids. He wants to sexually abuse my kids. And it just hit me. So I just hoped for a boy, because my mindset was so off. Like, I was so confused. So I said, okay, well, if I have a boy, he's not going to hurt him. So, I ended up having a boy and living with that lie for the whole entire year, first year of my son's life, and letting my son go there, because I was lying to myself, telling myself that, he's not going to hurt him. He's a boy. Because my stepfather was very, very, he hates gay men. He hates gay men. And I have a theory on why. Like, I'm not 100% sure, but I
I
mean,
already know your theory now.
yeah, and yeah.
You hate what you are sometimes.
Yeah, and maybe he is, or I don't know. Something tells me maybe he had a sexual abuse experience from a male.
Well,
Uh,
isn't that usually a pattern though too, that people that are sexually abused and never deal with it then turn that kind of
so,
pain into.
oh my God, yes. Let me get into this. So my family alone. Okay. So I've got to start. Like, this is like a lot of intense subjects for me. It gets like just so much abuse
Don't
in my.
worry, my show is a just full on trigger warning at this point. Everyone knows that if you were listening or watching, the entire show is always going to be a trigger warning, no matter what episode it is. You know.
Yep, that's the topics. So my mother. Okay, my grandmother told me that she thought my mother was being sexually abused, but she was too scared to tell my grandfather, because it would have really hurt my grandfather, by my mom's grandpa. So my grandpa's dad. So my grandmother told me that. And then there was also 100% fact that my mom, she went to court and everything. She was sexually abused by her uncle. Her uncle's wife stayed with the uncle who raped my mom, and he also raped his 2 daughters. So there's that, just that. So if my grandfather was sexually assaulting my mother, if my great grandfather was sexually assaulting my mother, who's to say he wasn't sexually assaulting all of his daughters? So all of his daughters repeated the cycle as well, having sex with each other's they brother-in-laws, like they all have kids with each other. Like it's really weird. It's a lot. So they all, like, my one uncle has kids, the pedophile uncle um has kids with all three of my grandpa's sisters. Okay? No joke. So then my mother, you know, grows up, she has kids, she has me at 17 years old. And she meets my stepfather.
Now, can I ask who your father is then?
So my father took off when I was 2 years old. I never seen him again. He moved away, and that was it. I seen him in later years, and now our relationship's kind of rocky. So it's just, you know.
I was just curious if, like,
where he went.
There's so many different uncles and grandfathers and just fucking around, you know what I mean? And who knows who's what, and so that's why I just had my curiosity.
So he moved away. So then my mom met he was in my life. My mom started cheating on my real dad with my stepdad. And this is all information like family has given me, bits and pieces, and I've figured it all out. And that's like, I loved doing that.
You were like the Charlie Kelly like meme, probably, right? Like papers and like things everywhere, like all over, just like trying to connect the dots of like.
Yeah, and so I've kind of connected quite a few. Like, it's crazy. So where was I? I was like talking about.
You were talking about how your mom started cheating on your dad with your soon-to-be stepdad.
My mom starts cheating on my dad, or my real.
Your dad left when you were 2. Okay, so this dude didn't waste any time to start like sexually abusing you.
He was in my life though since 5 months old. So my mom started cheating on my dad when I was 5 months, when I was 5 months old. And then my real dad moved away to Toronto, but he would still come see me, all of this, like, on and off. But then he stopped completely seeing me at 2. Then once my stepfather gained full control and isolation of me at that moment, because at that moment is when he gained full isolation of me, because my mom was okay with the abuse. And I'll explain how that kind of went about too. So my mom was okay with the abuse, so he had full isolation, and that's when he started sexually.
Was your mom targeted because she had a 5-month-old daughter, and he knew that that 5-month-old he could groom into that 3-year-old that he wanted?
Yeah, and she was like-minded. My mom had been sexually abused all of her childhood. She was beaten for her coping skills. She didn't know anything different, my mom. Yeah, so my mom didn't really know anything different. She was very naive, you know, and she wanted to impress a man. Her dad was very, very mentally, very emotionally abusive.
And let's talk about, this was the 80s, right? This is the 80s. It's not like it is today where she can go on TikTok and find people like her and get support. You know, and if she had you at 17, she's a young woman, 18, 19, coming into her own and very impressionable, and never had anybody truly love her. And now this dude is showing her that fake love that she's been looking for, and she falls for it, hook, line, and sinker, because why wouldn't she? Because she has no other kind of connection. Now she does. So, like, I can totally see at 18, 19 how easy it is for her to be like, oh, he loves me, though.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she did. Because I'll tell you, my first time he ever sexually assaulted me, I'll never forget how it went down. I'll never forget it now. And it took me many years. I had repressed memories like crazy, but I've done a lot of therapy on EMDR, and drugs were repressing so many memories, and I've let them all out.
And we'll even get to them, yeah.
Yeah. So the first memory I have was her and him, and it was like a game to them, and they kept saying to me, "Are you gonna sleep naked tonight? Are you gonna sleep naked tonight?" And then my mom would take off her underwear, so then I would take off my underwear. And then my mom would put her underwear back on, so then I would get up and say, "Oh, I want to sleep like my mommy," and I would put my underwear back on. And then it was just a fucking game to them. And then she laid me in between them, and he would touch me. And that was the first memories I have of it, and it was always a fucking game to them. And she was just trying to impress him. She was just trying to impress a man. Like, that's it. She was just trying to impress him. But she was willing to sacrifice me to impress a man. And
She felt like she had nowhere else to go anyway. And now she does. And that's obviously it's not an easy thing to talk about, but it's an important thing to talk about. And I hate to even say it, but you're not even the first one I've talked to on this show. I've even had a guy on here that his stepdad and his aunt were drugging him and molesting him at 5 until he was 8, and then he stayed in addiction with meth until he was 50 years old, 45 years,
Yeah.
because he was just repressing. So you are definitely not, and like that's why your podcast is perfect, Never Alone, because you're not alone, and obviously, Katie was on my show, and we both know how much you and Katie have in common. So, her episode, as of today, it's Thursday, came out 2 days ago, as when this one's airing. So you guys are extremely similar when it comes to ages and situations you're put in that you shouldn't be put in, but you're kind of forced into because of the geographics of the situation. You have nowhere else to go in that moment, and how we grew up in the 80s and 90s was completely different than today. There isn't helplines, or there wasn't noticeable helplines. You know what I mean? Like there are.
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget. You just said it. You just told, like, when I was a little girl, I was flipping. I was so mad at my parents. They wouldn't do something. I was, like, I was also a kid, right? So I wanted them to do stuff for me, and I was so pissed at them. I was calling them. I called it. This is how much we didn't know in the 80s. I called it the Humane Society, because I thought I said, I'm calling the Humane Society on you. And my mom was laughing her fucking head off. And she was like, here's the phone book. Go find it. And it was just like that's how much we didn't know. You're right. Like now we have TikTok to scroll through. We have
Google. We can just Google shit. Hey, how do I get my dad to stop touching me? Just Google it, please. The number will pop up. I'm sure of it. It's crazy to think about, but we all go through what we go through so that we can kind of make sure others don't have to go through it, right? But the thing with your situation that might be different from others that people don't know that I did find out is that, and I totally see how this happens too, is so, you're a young child who doesn't know any better and no one's telling you any different. So obviously you fall in love with the man.
Oh, he was my boyfriend. Like this is a touchy one because for me, like, I really did. I still love him very much. Like, it's so hard to even explain that because he was the first person I ever loved. And he actually treated me with respect. Like, and I know that sounds crazy, but like, there was, in a world where nobody loved you, like, my mom was very mean to me. She built up a lot of jealousy and resentment because of and in a world where nobody cared a stitch about you, he did, and he was very gentle to me. And everyone thinks, oh, sexual abuse is harsh. He was gentle. He was
there are harsh ones, and then but there's the ones that like yours that become way more confusing for a young girl who doesn't know any different, especially as this went on from, you said, 3 to 15.
Mm-hmm.
So you're hitting adolescence, and you're hitting adolescence, and when you're discovering boys, you don't need to discover boys. This person's already treating you like the movies did.
Well,
and
I got to experience dating teenage boys because I was having sex with a grown man since I was a little girl. That when I got to experience teens, I was like, I don't want these teenage boys, like,
and they won't know what they're doing.
So I started seeking out old male attention, because that's what I knew. And I was like, I don't want these I never really got to experience that teenage, crush like my son is experiencing right now, like he's got a girlfriend and it's like cute. And I was right into a male relationship right out of my abuse, right to a 20-year-old man.
So I have to now we're going to get into where my show really is more about is, when did you discover drugs and alcohol during this stage, during these?
So there's a whole other story.
We have plenty of time.
So my brother and I started having sexual interactions when I was 10 years old because I didn't know any different. So I started having sexual interactions with my brother at 10. He was 8, and that continued till I was about 12 or 13, maybe even 14. But he and I ended up going to a party one night, and we were really close. Like, we were actually, a good sibling relationship. Other than that weird shit, we are actually pretty close. And we ended up going to this party, and some guy I knew, I was 15, 14 or 15, maybe 16, but no later than 16 for sure. But we were at a party, and this guy had cocaine, and he was like, gave us some, and I'm like, I didn't give a fuck about myself. I had been doing ecstasy already with my friends. So I was like, this is my drug of choice. So he gave me a line of cocaine. That night was the first time I had ever been able to talk about my abuse in my life. So my brother and I sat there, and we cried to each other and like hugged, and like it got me, it just got me. And it hit me hard that night, and I'll never forget it. It was the first time I was able to open up and actually talk about what happened to me. And
you told your brother?
I told my brother, I didn't say exactly what happened, but I had said, there's a lot of shit that's gone down in our house and stuff. And he kind of agreed with me. And my brother knew I had been raped because my brother had walked in on it. So like we had just we didn't have to say the words, but I just like we had said that, and it was just so like it took so much from me, like to be able to actually share it, like, and with somebody who I thought really cared about me at the time, and I know he did. I know he's just sick because my brother still lives out there and believes that his stepdad, or tells everyone, I can't even say he believes it because he knows it, he knows the truth, but he tells everyone his stepdad is innocent. His real dad is innocent. But it's
because that's his dad.
Yeah.
Because
So
2 years younger than you, then that means you would have. Holy shit! When he got your mom pregnant, he was already touching you. He was basically just started touching you at 3. Was your mom pregnant when that happened?
She must have been. Yeah, she must
Yeah.
have been.
Do you think that the pregnancy and her not being able to do anything had anything to do with him looking elsewhere, or do you think it was inevitable anyway?
My mom is very emotionally abusive, and he admitted in court, not in court, sorry, in his parole hearing, that he felt no emotional connection to my mother and started feeling a me. And that's very common too, like my mom's very emotionally abusive, and it's not her fault or anything. I'm not blaming her, but he sought her out for a reason, right?
Like we said, yeah. Yep,
So,
and yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, he said that in court, and he also explained that something else he said in his parole hearing, sorry, was that it was like an addiction. Sexual abuse was like an addiction. He said once he started, he couldn't stop. He just couldn't stop. And
so is he in jail?
No, he went to jail for 4.5. Well, he got 4.5 years, served 3.5 years, because Canada is so fucking easy on pedophiles. It's a joke. Like that's another thing. Like it makes it so hard for us to want to come forward as it is, and then they get like nothing, and so it's like, is it even worth it, and it makes it so hard on us.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you do cocaine that night, but you had already done ecstasy. I know you're like my age. I know how big ecstasy was in high school, like 15, early 2000s, late 90s. It was the thing to do, and now, but once you did cocaine, that.
1 second.
Yep.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry.
you're fine.
Came home. I don't know. No. Sorry. We can cut that out, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna cut out your phone ringing earlier too.
Okay, perfect. I don't know where it is, Kaylin. Sorry, I'm just doing an interview. Okay, my husband like literally just walked in the door from going away from work. Okay, so you can start back where you were. Sorry.
No, it's fine. So you do coke that night. You had already done ecstasy before. You do coke that night, and I think I heard you say that coke is or was your drug of choice.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it about it? Was it the fact that you could finally talk, and it helped you not to be like? Were you like a really quiet girl before then?
Not at all. I was very, very like this. Like I was very vocal about everything, but I was told that I could never talk about that. That was so ingrained in my head that I couldn't talk about it. And my mom never talked about her abuse. I knew that her aunt was still with her abuser, but I didn't she never talked about it with me ever. Was never talked about. So I just knew I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about it. Like it was just so ingrained in our heads to not talk about it. And it's reminded of you daily, you know, and how they treat you. Like, I was only getting attention from my stepfather. Remember, I brought that back. I mean, I brought that up before, and he was the only person giving me attention. So if the only person was giving me attention now is mad at me, I'm not getting attention from anyone as a child, you know? And he would give me that, like, yeah.
He would give you the cold shoulder like you were his girlfriend and make you feel bad about it, make you come back.
Yeah.
It's so fucked up. Now at 15, it stopped. Did it stop because you finally went to jail because of it, or did
Well,
it stop because you got too old, or did it stop because you found somebody new?
well, like, I guess I aged out, you know, in a sense. Like, he would have kept having sex with me had I have said yes, but I just started pushing away, and he got scared of me telling, so he just left me alone. But he would bug me sometimes, and I gave in. Like, I moved out across the street to my aunt's house when I was 15, and he did ask me to do it once, and I did. And then I just stayed at my aunt's and wouldn't do it anymore, because I couldn't do it anymore. I had a boyfriend, and I was like doing that with my boyfriend, so I didn't want to do it with my stepdad and my boyfriend. Like, it was just weird to me. Like, it just seemed weird. I couldn't understand why it seemed weird, but it did. And then I know I'm saying that, and I'm saying that so genuinely, because it
I
seemed.
know. That's the only reason I'm laughing is just because of the way you said. Like, it seemed really weird that I would go from like having sex with my boyfriend then my stepdad. I don't know what it was, but it was super weird and awkward. I don't know why though, JD. I'm telling you.
So, like, that's how ingrained it is, you know. Like,
Well, I mean, like I said, 3 years old. I hate to say this, but you didn't stand a chance by the time you were 15 to know what normal was.
no, I have no.
How would you have known? Exactly. So, I'm not, obviously I'm not laughing at you. It's
No,
more like
I laugh at
with
myself,
you.
because I'm like, I can't, like, I laugh at myself, but I feel sorry for myself sometimes, because I'm like, holy shit, like, that's the way you thought, you know. And I know better now, but it's like, I still say
Yeah.
it, you know, and that'll come.
Yeah, but you're doing coke. You're doing coke, and you're 15. Are you able to get it all the time too?
Okay, so
Let's get into that.
I was able to get ecstasy a lot. I was able to get that all the time. Then I would just frequent this party. Buddy had this party all the time. Remember, I told you where I got the drugs. So he always had a party. He was a bit older than I, and he was always having parties. So I would
Here's
just,
my surprise face about older.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, no. So he was having parties all the time. So I would just show up to these parties and just try to get the drugs. Then, okay, so this was till I was 19ish. This kept continuing, this kind of cycle. Then 19, I met my husband, and my husband was selling drugs. So it was just like, yeah, you know. And he grew up in a family with addiction. Addiction runs deep in his family. You know, a
This
lot of
is
people.
is he selling pills? Because mid 2000s when we're 19, it's pill city, it's oxy city, especially
Coke and pills, and so he sold his drug of choice and my drug of choice. You know, so it was just so convenient, right? And yeah, so when we met and then he was my dealer, you know, like, he was the one. I don't even, like, he just brought the drugs home to me all the time, you know. It was just the
yeah.
way it. I'll never forget the first time, you know, I wanted to get drugs. Me and my friends were sitting around looking for drugs. We were sitting around looking for drugs, and she's like, my one friend's like, call that guy you're dating. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking call him. Like, if I call him and he doesn't want drugs, we're not going to. And then my one friend's like, well, if he doesn't do drugs, she said, then are you even going to stay with him? And I was like, good point. So then I call him up, and I'm like, can you get us drugs? He's like, I'll be right there. Like, and
Got him in my pocket
I'm like,
on my way.
because he has my coping skill, you know, and that's how that kind of progressed. And then we ended up, you know, using together for many years, and we got sober last year.
Really?
And there he is.
Congratulations to both of you. What's your
He,
sober date then?
mine's October 31st, and Kalen's is like the 23rd of November.
So what was going on for you Halloween of last year to where you were like, fuck it, I'm done?
You know, my son started, like, getting into shit. Like, he was, you know, smoking weed. He's 14, you know, he was 13 at the time. And it just kind of hit me that, like, I'm literally giving him the exact same reality as me, you know?
Yeah, so you were like a drinker at this point when you quit?
No, I was
You were
like,
still using.
I was I was an IV drug user up until, well, there's a lot of things that made me want to quit doing drugs. There's a lot of things, a lot of moments that happened that were huge. I had a big surgery, and the surgery almost killed me. I had to have blood transfusions, and that moment is when I stopped using needles, and then a year later I quit snorting it. So I would still snort.
What was it for you? What were you doing?
Oh, cocaine.
Still coke. Okay, so
Always right.
always coke, and he was the opiate guy, and he just stuck with the pills.
Yeah, and well, no, he went to fentanyl.
Well, yeah, most do. That's why I got out. I'm glad I got out when I did. I haven't touched.
Me
I relapsed with drinking eventually, but I haven't touched a pill since April 2018,
too.
and it scares the shit out of me to even think about getting a fake blue and then dying on my relapse.
It's so quick. My husband the other day, he was picking me up from the airport, and like, he's like, I'm so tired, I'm going to sleep in the car. And I got so triggered by him saying that, because when he used to go use and do fentanyl in the car, I would be so scared that I would find out that he's dead,
Yeah.
and I'm so grateful that I got out of it too, because meth just hit our area.
Oh shit.
Meth,
Yep.
meth never really was around our area. Like, I live out in the middle of like nowhere, and like, I mean, like, anywhere I was around, I've never had, that, but it just hit our area, and I know quite a few people who are being affected by it right now. And I just keep saying I'm so grateful, because that would have been my drug. Like, meth and cocaine are so similar, right? And it would have been
Yeah.
that would have been my next go, right?
It definitely would have, because it would have been cheaper and it would have given you a different kind of high, and that different kind of high you would have then chased. And since you wouldn't have physically withdrew from cocaine, and you wouldn't have went into psychosis because the meth would have taken care of that regardless. Yeah, it's easy, really easy transfer.
Oh,
I'm glad that your eyes opened up and you're just like, wait, I can't do this. My kid's getting older and
I
it's not
can't.
cute anymore.
I
You
can't.
know.
I'm still, I still know that, like, it's very possible that my kids could suffer with addiction, but I do know that I have the tools now to help them if they ever do. And I do understand that, I've put my kids have seen some fucking awful days, and but they've
And
seen
and
all.
but let's be real though. We don't suffer from addiction. We suffer from not having solutions. It's not that we're suffering because, we're addicted to these drugs or this drink. We're suffering because we don't know how to deal with real life problems. So we drown it away, or we sniff it away, or we shoot it away. So we think when we're in the moment, like, yeah, like, oh my God, I am so powerless to this. And this is my problem. And I need to stop. This is my problem. Like, no, your problem isn't drinking or drugs. Your problem is everything else. There's solution to your problems is the drink and a drug. Put that away and find new solutions.
When I started smoking crack, when my addiction hit crack, and when it hits crack,
Sorry. When you're like, so when I started smoking crack,
so open, it's fucked up. Okay.
I know. No, I love it. Go ahead.
I have to be. It's accountability. So
Yep.
when I started smoking crack, this was okay. This is how it progressed to that situation. It was like, so as soon as my mom, I came forward when I was 21 and said I was sexually abused. Okay. Instantly, my mother took his side, and she had every one of my siblings call me a liar, a whore who wanted it, all kinds of shit. So I have all this going on. That's when my addiction hit crack. I was just at that point, I was just like, more,
I I
you know?
figured it was either the abuse or you met Rob Ford and then you guys took off together.
Oh yeah, Rob Ford. Everybody smoked crack. Oh God.
I haven't. I haven't. So
Toronto.
what? Yep.
I seen him I seen him when I was at a court thing, and I was like, there's Rob Ford. I was so excited because he smokes crack.
Smokes crack. Okay, so now you're smoking crack. Just taking after the mayor. But you came forward when you were 21. Is that when he caught charges and had to go away for a little bit?
Yeah, so he when I was 21, I told the police I was sexually abused. He had 4 other victims also come forward.
That was the ticket then, because your mom's telling all these people. I was wondering. I was about to ask you. Your mom's telling all these people, no, no, she's a liar, she's a slut, blah blah blah. But really, 4 other girls are like, nah, nah, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And like, he had got my mom's friend pregnant, like all kinds of stuff, you know, like this guy was trying to have sex with my grandma. No joke. My mom's mom, he tried to have sex with her. My
How do
aunt,
how
like
do
this
you try to how do you go for like the oh my god.
right from three, he was
There's there
sex addiction.
it's a sex addiction. That's a straight up what it is. It doesn't matter. It's not even about the age at that point. It's about just the act of fulfillment.
Yeah.
And because that's all it is at that point. And yeah, you need therapy, bro. You need to work on that.
It was his like toy, you know, at the end of the day. I,
Literally,
I
like,
was willing.
uh, yeah, like you 3 years old, you can almost wear American Girl dolls. You know what I mean? Like outfits because you're still small. You are a fucking toy. Like
Oh,
that's disgust. Like it's absolutely, we know it's gross. We know it's
oh,
disgusting, but unfortunately that shit happens and it's still happening, and that's why. And I'm gonna get to this now. When did you decide to be like, I'm gonna put this on TikTok?
oh. So I've always been like, since I came forward when I was 21, I've always been very vocal about my abuse. But like I
But you were on drugs, so like people were still like, yeah, but she's high, so what are we doing?
exactly. Like she doesn't mean shit because she's still high. Like there's really nothing going
This
on. You know?
episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the
Were you
episode.
able to get sober during the pregnancies?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
great. Okay, good.
Yeah, I was grateful to do that because by then I wasn't really like I hadn't started smoking it at that point, so I wasn't
Okay.
like hooked, like I was hooked, like I wanted it, and it sucked that I was pregnant and couldn't use it, but I was okay with not using it. And I was focused on my babies and I was excited about my babies, and then when I came forward, that's when it just hit the fan, like, and I started smoking it like after I had my son.
Well, yeah, then you're coping with it, because you're going through these trials. I'm sure they're not easy to talk on a stand about what happened. I'm sure it's not easy to be in a courtroom and hear other women tell the same story you told about the same guy you told, and it's a very emotional thing. And
Oh,
and people like us that we start out using drugs or alcohol at a young age. Like I was 11 when I discovered alcohol, and it was my coping tool all through my adolescence and teenage years. So we don't learn how to properly deal with things, right? So when we have to deal with real life shit when we're in our young 20s, all we know how to do is get fucked up over it. We don't know how to actually process it and like talk about it and deal with it. We know we can just say it and word vomit and talk, but we don't know actually how to talk and be self-aware enough to talk about it.
it's true. It took me.
I was
So
asking about your TikTok. That's where we were.
how to sharing it. So I started following people, and I was just seeing them for their stories. So the first person I really got some inspiration was from. Do you follow Recovery Life Apparel?
I might. I follow a lot.
So these
Nothing
two,
that sticks out.
yeah, two girls, Lolita and Ashley, and they just share their addiction struggles. And they were like the first girls that were just like so real that I was like, these girls were sharing like their addiction struggles, and it just seemed so like vulnerable and good. And I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. So I got sober. Okay. So I got sober, and it was 6 months sober I was. And then all of a sudden I was like, I think I'm going to start. No, I said to myself, I think I'm going to start sharing little pieces of my story on TikTok, but I wasn't really sure how I was going to do it. And I was kind of scared of like the story, and how it was going to affect people. And then I seen Katie, and Katie had shared some raw detail of her abuse. So I was like, fuck this. If she can do it, I can do it. And I wanted to do it, So then I started sharing it. I went like viral the next day. Well, no, the next day I was getting quite a bit of views. And then she duetted me. So I was so excited. But then the TikTok, the first TikTok that went viral was when I shared that sometimes our bodies respond through orgasm, and that really, like, that one just blew up. Like, it just went viral because I was like, I think people were just so, like, validated, right? Like, nobody had ever heard anyone say, and that's what I kept getting, that exact comment. Oh, I've never heard anyone say that before.
Now, can you say it again because we both talk fast. Say it
Okay.
again. Say it again and then explain it, please.
So sometimes, being sexually abused, your body doesn't, it responds through orgasm. Like, I was 3 years old and learned what orgasm was, and everyone will say, I've heard so many times, oh, 3-year-olds can't have it. Yes, they can, because I did. And another reason is because you can as young as a newborn baby. Your body has those feelings right young. Like, it's nervous. You can't.
Nervous, yeah.
And I shared that on TikTok. Shared that, my body responded through orgasm, and sometimes I would ask my stepdad to come in my room because I was also addicted to that feeling, So I shared that on my TikTok page, and that one just went viral. And then I was like, I just need to keep sharing, and I kept sharing stories, and so many of them people related to.
Yeah, and I mean, because it when you got sober, it's not like you were like hitting the meetings or anything like that. It's not like you're a big book person or you go to meetings. It's almost like, you're finding your sobriety and your program through being able to just like find a support network that you're growing yourself with people. I mean, you just had an amazing weekend with a bunch of women who are all very like you and all have very similar backgrounds, and you're all from the internet, and then you all said, fuck it, let's meet. Like, and you came from Canada to go to Ohio. Like, that is so fucking cool. Like, I was like, the video of you and Katie meeting was one of the most adorable things I saw all weekend, and I was like, oh, I want to talk to them. I need to talk to them. I hope I can talk to them. And then finally Katie got back to me. I'm sure Chrissy probably mentioned, because Chrissy was such a fun guest. Chrissy was on here, and she was like, I feel like I blacked out when I talked to you because I don't usually open up to men, but for some reason I felt like we've known each other for years, and I just word vomited to you for an hour.
I learned a little something from everyone all weekend. It was awesome. It was such an inspirational weekend. It was just great.
Yeah, and then you guys got back, and then Katie messaged me like, hey, I'm ready now. I'm finally ready. And then we did ours, and then we posted that little clip, and then you messaged like, all right, now I'm ready. And I'm like, all right, now I'm getting them. Now we're talking. Because, I see these videos, and they grab my attention, and they're supposed to. They're supposed to grab my attention, right? And the whole thing is the algorithms are so smart. And because I'm trying to, trying to make sure my TikTok feed is all like recovery stuff. And then I'm scrolling, and then I see sexual abuse, and I'm like, why am I seeing that? And then I realize, like, oh my God, they're in recovery. And also, it's just they go hand in hand.
I was just gonna say, I talk to many social workers, and
I get a lot of herpes talk too. I'm not even herpes positive, but I get herpes positive talks.
But I am.
Hey, according to the TikToks, what's a 7 out of 10? So I'm not surprised by those numbers.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? I forget now.
We were talking about how just meeting people and talking and learning from each other and making these videos. Yeah. I mean, your page jumped up, and so you're getting all this outreach and support, right? Like, you're getting people saying, "Hey, that's me too," and "That's me too." Like, this is my story.
And like, I feel like, the me too's, like, it's crazy. I love the validation that I get along with everybody else, because I think we all feel validated on my page, and that's what I really like. And
what was it that got your husband to quit then? A few weeks after you, a little over 3 weeks after you, he decided to quit.
He got in a really bad car accident, and at that moment I was letting him drive my car without a license. I was enabling him, and I said to him at that moment, I was like, I just can't enable you anymore. Like, I just can't do it. And he decided that he was going to check himself into a treatment center and get sober, because he wanted to get sober for the kids too. And my husband's a fighter too. Like, he's always wanted to get sober. We were just playing into each other's addictions for many years, and he would sell, and that was bring us back down. Like, every time we would get a little bit of time sober, because sometimes we'd get 3 3 months sober, and then we'd fall right back down. But we didn't have the tools,
Yep.
and so he spent like every last penny we had on food and shelter for me and the kids, and treatment for himself, and he checked himself into treatment, and it was the best money we ever spent.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's, it's a fear, right? When we're in addiction for as long as we are, because I was 31 when I got sober, for the first time, and that's 20 years of drinking and 10 years of pills. And when I first got sober, it was my first treatment center, but it worked because I wanted it to, and it worked because, before it wouldn't have, because I was afraid. And
Yeah.
when you don't, and it's almost like you're afraid to live a life without that drug because that's all you know. And let's be real, I know your first toxic relationship was not the drug, but my first toxic relationship in my life was a drug.
Mm.
It wasn't a person, it was roxycodone. That was the first toxic relationship that I had in my life, and I consider it one. And I've even told other people, I do meetings. I run a meeting center where I live, for mental health, and we do AA, NA, all kinds of stuff, trauma, LGBTQ, but we also do like families for addictions. And I had a woman here, and she's got to be in her 50s, 60s, and she has a son my age, 34 years old. She's like, I don't understand 15 years of shooting dope, and I don't know why he won't stop. And I said, okay, let me think of it this way. Have you ever had a boyfriend that your parents hated? Did you ever have a boyfriend that your parents said is no good for you, and he's going to drag you down, and he's abusing you, and he's not right for you, and he's horrible, and you're like, you don't know. You don't know how he makes me feel. You don't know what we'll be doing. We're alone, and what he says to me, and how he comforts me. She's
Yes.
like, yeah. And I was like, because for the first time in 15 years, she was able to sympathize and understand her son.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of explaining to people that kind of a way and showing them the different perspectives on what our drug use was really like and why it's so hard to get out.
Yeah.
There's an old timer that comes to my meetings, and he's like, I never quit. I haven't done drugs in 30 years, but I don't know how to quit. I just know how to stop starting.
Oh, yeah. No, it's true. It's just like literally, like so hard. It's the hardest thing it's the hardest thing I've ever been through. Addiction was harder than the abuse. It was harder than the abuse because the abuse I didn't know was hard. It was just normal. It was life. Um, but the addiction it was horrible. And like I don't wish it on my worst enemy. I really don't. It's
Yeah,
horrible.
and and the things, the lies that we tell ourselves in addiction, to where it's not that bad, or this is way worse than it is.
Yeah.
I was never a suicidal person until the last 3 years of my addiction, because it was just, I was so tired, and I hear the cliches all the time, sick and tired of being sick and tired. But it's a cliche because people say it all the time, because the first time you say it, you don't know it's a cliche. The first time I said I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, then I found out like it's a cliche. But you say it for real because you're just so exhausted. Like, that's why I loved rehab, because it was 29 days with no cell phones, no nothing, just me and my pack of smokes, you know what I mean, and just relax and go to IOP and bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. I never went to treatment, but like I don't know, it clicked for me. It just clicked for me. I was done.
Well, it was a little different when, with Coke too, because you're going to go through psychosis regardless for a little bit.
Yeah.
You're going to get psychosis here and there, whether you're in a treatment center or not, and you can kick it cold turkey and not die.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's the psychosis part that you should be monitored for. So as long as you know that it's coming and you know what it's like, then it's going to be a lot easier to get through and manage.
The psychosis part of the drug I never really got a lot of. And I
You
think that no, I didn't.
Do you
Everybody
think your brain was just overloaded with trauma that it couldn't even get the psychosis?
I
Like,
because I never got psychosis. Everyone else does but me. That's why I was like happy I never that's why I say I'm happy I never found meth, because I would have been addicted, like I would have been hook, line, and sink, because it was like that. It's that exactly, like I don't get that psychosis that everybody, that's what makes everybody want to quit, is the psychosis, not me. I was like, I don't even get it. Like
yeah, it's almost a shame when our drugs don't take us to our knees sooner. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Because it's a lie that we tell ourselves for so long that look how good I'm functioning. I have a family, I have a house, I have a car. Look at me. It doesn't matter. And I'm talking about my trauma and I'm open. But no, really, you're still just dead on the inside.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. Like you just summed it right up.
Now, in the last year, though, how like transformative has it been now that you've gotten like, now let's be real, you get high every day from your dopamine from when you ever post something and you have that much of a following. You're getting those clicks, and then you get the flops. We all get the flops too.
Yep.
But like that's a high every single
Oh,
day, and
yeah.
that's okay. We're addicts. We're always going to be addicts.
But
It's just a matter of with
I,
what.
I'm
What?
learning I'm learning healthy highs. Do you know what I mean? And social media isn't everything. But
No.
I'm learning that, I am like it's okay to get a high from posting a video. If it goes viral and I get a high from it, it's not hurting anyone. It's I'm just doing what I like to do and I'm healing. Every time I share a little piece of my story, this abuse story lives in my head. It doesn't go away. It's not gone. When I wake up in the morning, it's the first thing I think about because it hate me every morning. When I get up in the morning, that's the first thing that clicks to my brain. So I don't get like that. This is a release to me. Every time I post a video or a TikTok about my abuse, it's off my mind and it's like a journal. So I consider it like a journal now, and I get excited about the highs that come from it because there is, and I'm not going to lie about that. There's great highs that come from it. When I get a 7 million views, I'm like, hell yeah, like but
I'm sitting
that's
here like 4,000. Yeah.
that's a healthy high, right? Like that's a healthy high, and I go to the gym and I make dinner and I live life and I get adventurous. I do things with my kids and I never could do that stuff high.
And well, do you know what the difference is that makes the addiction like out of hand to the point where you need help with it, to where like the social media addiction is okay? Well, it's not an addiction, but like the difference is when it makes your life unmanageable, in my opinion. If
Me too.
you're skipping out on appointments, if you're not showing up for things, you're missing the kids' baseball game or whatever, or whatever. If you're not showing up for other things because that's too important to you, it's making your life unmanageable. Then it's a problem. And that's the thing is, people don't realize that people can do drugs recreationally for a very long time and not be a drug addict because their life isn't unmanageable. Their bills are paid, their house is paid, their wife and their life is happy, the kids are happy. They just have a little habit that they, do every night in the attic in secret, but everything else is taken care of. And it's crazy to think about, but people drink that way. So people actually use drugs that way too.
I have like
Um,
there's people in the area that drink like that. I see it all the time and they always would judge me as the drug addict of the neighborhood, yet they are all drinking. And I'm always like, it's the same thing.
yeah, I mean, I like NA a lot, and in NA we say that alcohol is a drug. Period. It's part
It
of the
is.
literature. And in my opinion, it's worse than most drugs I've ever taken in my entire life. One, because it's so socially acceptable that it's dangerous. Um, there's no stigma on it when there should be.
Yep.
It's so funny to be a walking stigma, and for alcohol, there's no stigma for it, and that's the one there should be a stigma for. Like mommy wine culture is so acceptable. 5 p.m. wine time. There's shirts. There's fucking everything.
You're
Wine
so
and it's just so allowed and so high five. Post on Facebook. We're getting drunk.
yep.
You don't see people post on Facebook, hey, I just snorted 3 big lines, motherfucker. Like you don't see that shit. You might get the text from your buddy, but you don't see the post. But you do see the wine glass. You see the wine glasses set up on the counter, with the bottle poured
Oh,
out into 2 cups.
and I read somewhere that alcohol has ruined more families than most drugs. I don't know if that's still
It is. I'm
pandemic.
sure it is. I'm
I mean,
sure it is. I exponentially went higher during the pandemic. Around our area in rural PA, it was selling out liquor stores. You know
I
what I mean?
yeah, yeah, I meant the epidemic. I mean, like with after the oxy use, I don't know if it's probably
Well,
probably
fentanyl killed 78,000 people in America last year. I know that's a crazy number. But I used to do stand up comedy, right?
wow.
And I always talk about how I had this joke about weed, because I use cannabis in my recovery. I don't smoke it. I literally went to a rehab in Los Angeles to learn how to change my relationship with it so that I use it as a medicine. And
Same.
now What's that?
Same.
Oh, you use cannabis too.
Yeah.
Okay, so weed to me is always the innocent bystander. So when you watch the show Cops, everyone has seen the show Cops at least one time. When you watch that show, weed was always there. They always talk about weed being there, but it was never, hey, my husband just smoked a blunt, now he's hitting me. That was never the phone call on Cops. It was he's been drinking or he's been doing drugs and now he's hitting me. Then
That's
the cops come and they arrest everybody. They go, oh, and he has weed too. Weed was the innocent bystander, just hung out with the wrong people sometimes,
that's true.
But it's not the problem. It's not causing families to go down. People aren't getting high and hitting their wives or getting high. It
No,
doesn't happen. It's alcohol. And because it's so acceptable and because it's so like, let's go party, it's like a rite of passage.
it
To
is.
get
It is. It is. And it's like you said, so socially acceptable, right? And like it's been ruining families for many, many years. My husband's family
hundreds.
has a lot of alcoholism in it, a ton of alcoholism.
Well, I mean, it's been going on since at least the 1800s because in the late 1800s is when a very conservative Christian women's group in America are the ones that started the prohibition push that happened in the 1900s here.
Right.
Prohibition, when alcohol got outlawed for like 8 years in the 1920s, 100 years ago, it was because of a very conservative group, a women's group that were, very religious and they were very against it and they saw the writing on the wall what alcohol was doing. And they were the ones that pushed for that prohibition that happened. And it was all the lushes that got it to come back. Either way,
Yeah.
I am so glad we got to sit down and talk.
Thank
And I got to learn a little more. It's not that I had questions. I mean, obviously, who wouldn't have questions for you when you see your post? But it was just that, like, I needed to hear your story of how you got out of what you got out of. You know.
you.
So I know it's easy for you to talk about now, but I know it's not easy to talk about at the same time, if that makes sense. Like you're used to talking about, but at the same time, tears are still going to come every single time.
Pretty much. There's always a spot that gets me. Like there's always a spot that gets me. And it just depends on my day. Like some days I'm missing my mom a lot, so a spot about her will get me. Some days I'm missing my stepfather a lot. Some days, some days I don't even care. some days I don't.
Trauma is so weird too. You know what I mean? Like I lost a fiance to suicide that was bipolar, schizophrenic, and an alcoholic.
Wow.
We were childhood best friends and we dated for 3 years and we were engaged. And I blame myself for a while, but now my wife, I can talk about, Colleen all the time. And there are some days where like I can talk about her and not get choked up, and there's other days where I'm just a mess and I can't do it. And I still can't watch the show Glee, you know what I mean? Because it reminds me too much of her,
Yeah.
and there's little things like that. But as long as we keep trying to talk, as long
Yeah.
as we keep trying to talk and keep making these connections and networking and meeting new people and not feeling never alone, like your podcast is. I'll put all your links in the description. So if you're not following her already, I'm sure a lot of you that are watching this have found this because she posted it, and that's why you're watching it. But it's okay. If you're one of my audience members that, are like, who is this? And you're watching this and you want to hear more about her TikTok will be in the description, whether you're listening or watching any of her socials. She'll send them to me. I'll put them in the description. So thank you so much. I'll let you do what you have to do. It was so nice to like sit down and like talk and meet.
It was. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You too.